My name is Kyle Harmon Townsend. I'm 33 years old.
How long have you lived in Asheville?
About 5 years.
What year did you begin climbing? Did you first climb?
Well, the first time that I ever climbed inside of a climbing gym, I was 9 years old. And that was at a climbing gym in Winston-Salem called The Rock.
Oh, the Rock.
Mm-hmm. So I probably went to a total of 3 birthday parties, I would say, between age 9 and 13 or 14. And then I actually got a bunch of climbing gear for my birthday when I was in like 7th or 8th grade, but I never really used it. I went out to Pilot Mountain with my dad and my friend and his dad maybe 2 or 3 times when I was 13, and then I didn't climb again for a long time and forgot about it. And I would say that I started climbing regularly about 5 years ago.
Yeah, okay. Alright. Well, that's interesting. It didn't stick at the time. What brought you into the climbing world, like, in these past 5 years since you've been really into it?
Well, I always knew that I loved rock climbing, but there were distractions and obstacles in my life that had gotten in the way, and I think that I had reached an age and a maturity level and just a stage of readiness to be focused and committed to a discipline. And so I started going to the climbing gym here in Asheville, and I really connected strongly with a community of young men around my same age that had similar lifestyle goals as me, and we just clicked up, and it was great.
And some of those men are my informants in this project, right?
Yes.
Here you go. It's a really aggressive mat. Did you feel the same about climbing when you began as you do today? And explain yourself.
Sure. Well, it's always difficult to accurately conjure up memories, but I would say that I've experienced fairly regular transformations of my attitude towards climbing and my attitude towards myself and my relationship of self-image and self-esteem and self-worth being directly tied to my climbing, and then learning over the years that I enjoy climbing more if it's not tied to those things, and if it's more about self-exploration, self-development, and self-actualization, while finding a balance between those pursuits and making the really easy mistake to make of equating self-worth with performance.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I feel that. Okay. Let me make that over there. Do you, and I also know my informants, you guys, well, so I know this already, but do you prefer climbing outside or inside, and what's the difference for you?
I prefer climbing outside, but I do love climbing inside, and there are pros and cons to both in certain circumstances. I love being outside on a beautiful day with friends who I adore, laughing together and encouraging one another to try really hard and dig deep and fight the good fight of challenging ourselves to be the best that we can be at something. And I like being in nature, and I like, driving to the crag with friends in the car and having good conversation. And I like the way that real rock feels on my hands. I enjoy outdoor climbing sensually more than I do indoor climbing. The way the wind feels blowing against your skin and through your clothes and on your face, the way the rock feels on your hand, the way that the blue sky and the sunlight peeking through tree cover, all that stuff I really enjoy. Indoor climbing, if it's a good route setter and a good gym that's really well designed and has a good community, it can be really fun. And in terms of training, I actually prefer indoor climbing because you can control and manipulate the variables to a higher degree in order to create a training stimulus.
Cool. All right. So setting aside that kind of section of background and whatnot, it all kind of like works together, of course, but I want to ask you, what does land mean to you and how do you connect to it?
So I guess I have several definitions in mind. One is just the idea of space, three-dimensional space in which organisms can occupy, objects can occupy, etc. I also have a connotation of land ownership, which is very difficult to grow up in almost any society and not develop the sensibility that if there is land, it belongs to someone or some entity, right? And I think that in recent years, it's been really important that climber coalitions have developed in order to acquire and to protect land, especially in the Southeast where a lot of our climbing venues are on private property or used to be, and were acquired through purchase from organizations like the Access Fund, Carolina Climbers Coalition, Southeastern Climbers Coalition, etc. But yeah, I think that as climbers, we have a responsibility to stewardship, because if we trash our climbing areas, there can be consequences. And some of the areas of heavy use, like Orange Oswald Wall at Summersville Lake, is a prime example, or the roadside crag at Red River Gorge. It can be sort of like a showcasing of irresponsible climber behavior, and it's not malicious. It's mostly new climbers who are coming out of the gym and haven't had an opportunity to be educated on the ethics of what is acceptable outdoor climbing behavior. And so, setting up hammocks and blasting loud music and walking off trail and creating social trails that trample vegetation and can cause harm to the ecology of the area. Things like micro trash where people are using climbing tape and just sort of inadvertently leaving it. It all starts to add up when you consider the numbers game of the annual visitors to a place like Muir Valley or a place like Roadside Crag or what have you. So yeah, land's important because without land we don't have crags and we don't have anything to climb on. So it'd be a shame if in 100 years from now climbing only existed indoors.
Gosh, I know. Wouldn't be a fan of that. Wouldn't be able to climb anyways, but doesn't matter. Other people matter too. So, how do you find yourself connecting to land? What does that look like for you? Or when do you feel the most connected to land?
Yeah, I would say that the land that I feel most connected to as a climber is the Obed, which is just about an hour northwest of Knoxville. And I feel connected to that land because it's the climbing area that I've visited the most over my 5 years in Asheville because of the major sport climbing destinations. You know, the Red River Gorge, the Chattanooga area.
Mm-hmm.
The Obed is 3 hours driving distance, whereas the others are 4 to 4.5. So I've spent a lot of time there, and the way I feel connected is when I'm hiking out to the crag, and I feel like I've hiked those same hikes so many times that my feet just know every step, and it becomes this almost trance-like meditation of really joyful purpose, you know, because I'm usually with good friends that I love and care about, and we're on the way to do this thing that we love in this place that we adore that is just so beautiful. The Obed is incredible. It's a river gorge that's somewhat narrow with sheer cliffs on both sides, and it winds through that canyon and intersects. There's two rivers, one's called Clear Creek and the other is called the Obed, and on top there's these amazing vistas where the rivers converge that you have like these 180 degree plus panoramas. And I can remember one poignant memory of connecting with that land when the solar eclipse happened a couple of years ago. And Danielle and I went out there, and it just was a really magical experience of human beings all congregating and witnessing a powerful natural phenomenon. And people were howling, and the sky went dark, and we were all together, you know, connected on that land. And it was really beautiful.
I was in downtown Asheville on a rooftop.
Sweet.
With some coworkers. Okay. I need a sip. So, okay, say you just finished belaying Danny. You've decided, all right, I'm gonna get on this climb. Let's say sport climb. Negating this is like a really special project to you, or whether it's that or it's like your first time getting on this climb and you're just gonna go for it, just a warm-up climb or something. Negating those things, because I think each of those has their own answer here. What physically goes into readying yourself for a climb, and what's going through your head? Like, talk about that process.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. And you're absolutely right that going for an on-site versus a well-rehearsed red point versus a warm-up climb are going to have three distinct experiences associated with them. But in general, what all three of them have in common is I start breathing regularly and deeply. Probably I try to at least 5 minutes before I think I'm going to start climbing. So while I'm still walking around, you know, gathering quick draws, making sure I have enough chalk in my chalk bag, getting the right shoes for that particular climb, I try to begin rhythmic, deep breathing. And I do that because it brings me a sense of calmness and focus. And I believe that there's a power in ritual. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I really enjoy putting my climbing shoes on, and I try to do that really deliberately and make that sort of like a Zen-like experience, where I'm not just mindlessly throwing shoes on. I'll pick up my shoe and I'll blow inside of it to make sure that there's no dirt or debris I'll brush my foot off to make sure that my foot is clean. I put it in the shoe.